Welcome back to the Kick and Post YouTube channel and podcast, and welcome back to the Art of MMA with your host, Amal Thompson. And
Roger.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And as we close out the year, going into the new year of not only 2025 to 2026, but the UFC calendar year, end of an era on ESPN,
Mhm,
hopping over to
mhm.
Paramount, affordable fight cards, depending on who you are. I don't want to pocket watch, but $70 for a year of fights is a lot better than $70 for 3 hours of fights.
Right.
We decided let's go back, have some of our, reminiscing moments about some of the best moments last year that we as a podcast watched, covered, some of the stuff we missed, and just some of the best moments preparing ourselves for what's to come in roughly 16 days when we have our first Paramount card. How you feel about that, Roger?
You feel great. I think that's gonna be a good change. I don't know what changes the UFC is gonna make
Mm-hmm.
as far as production-wise and, what they're gonna swing towards. I've heard these, rumors about trying to make the fights more fan-friendly and things like that. So, I'm not sure if they're gonna implement any of these things or if that's just like taught from people that want to see more fan friendly fights, a lot less of the wrestling with no damage like we talked about on the last pod, and trying to get more exciting fights in there. So I don't know that they can do that without changing rules and things like that. So they probably won't have anything to do with Paramount, but I am excited for that. And I'm excited to be able to watch the fights all the way through and see all of the big fights. They will have one more viewer on those fights than they had when they were doing pay-per-views, at least.
They'll have two more legal viewers. That's all I'll say. I'm not saying it's me. Just saying there'll be two more legal viewers as of January 24th. Um, but to get this show kicked off, our award show, I feel like I should have gotten fancy through on my bow tie. But Fighter of the Year is where we'll start. Um, what says you, Roger? Who was Fighter of the Year 2025 in the UFC?
All right, so I had a few candidates. A lot of good fighters out there. Fareed Zaim has really come on. A lot of good fights this year. Manel Kopp ended the year on just a explosion to sit on top. Uh,
Coming
Fulcher
off a mic,
Walker,
huh?
4 heel hooks. Yeah, Manel Kopp cannot be on the mic.
Yeah, off the mic.
They have to hold it at a distance. Don't ever let his hand cover your hand on that mic. Um, Vulture Walker, 4 heel hooks. I mean, what can you say about that? Amazing. Um, Melchizedek Costa. Sure, I pronounced his first name wrong. But Costa,
The Dalmatian.
5 fights. He did lose one of them, but 5 fights in a year. That's a monster year for him. 4 wins. Waldo Acosta, Michael Morales. But I went with Joshua Van because Joshua Van had 4 fights, started off on the prelims, ended the year with a title. I know it's a controversial win, but he couldn't control that. He did what he was supposed to do. The fight ended up with him winning the title. Monster year for him. I don't know of anyone with a better year than that. So I'm going Joshua Van. What do you say?
I love that because, like you said, the growth throughout the whole year. Not many fighters have had the opportunity to essentially be a prelim fighter and then end as a title holder, all in one
Hmm.
calendar year. So I got to give credit where credit's due. Um, but there is a guy who I felt like took risks unnecessarily, for the greater good of whether you call it his financial benefit or if you think it's legacy, which I feel like it is more legacy because yeah, he's making good money. Um, I don't think he was in a position where the fifth fight was necessary for him or it was a greed thing. I think he was chasing greatness, which even if you chase greatness and fail, I feel like I should still give you credit for that, especially when the risk is all on you, right? And I'm talking about Marab Dwalish Willie. Um, 5 fights, 4 title defenses, lost in the fifth one to a guy who he was very familiar with, had a previous fight. Again, this wasn't going to be a situation where he's benefiting off beating a young prospect. You
Hmm.
could kind of go the Pantoja route where his aim was to take down a guy who probably wasn't prepared, kind of backfired. He took on a guy who was known to be very dangerous, had the tools to neutralize what he was good at, gave him problems in the first matchup, and I don't think there was any outside of the record of having 5 title defenses in a calendar year, which I think is what he was chasing, um, to set because I think 4 is the current record which he holds now, right? Um,
No, he was going for his fourth
he was going for his fourth. Okay,
in the
in,
year. Yeah.
in the year,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so he had ended September 24th against Sean O'Malley.
Yes,
Um, and then he was going for 4 title defenses in a year, which would have been a record. Yeah.
yeah. So he was chasing the record of 4 title defenses in a year. Um, he could have picked somebody off the top of the pile that wasn't a great wrestler,
Yeah.
um, not the best striker, right? Somebody who probably he could ragdoll for 5 rounds and get that
Hmm.
record. He took a very dangerous opponent. I think a very deserving opponent, which a lot of times in this UFC fight game is not the route, especially in a game where we're trying to push forward with garnering eyes and views, right? So for all these reasons, even though he lost, I have to give it to him because I feel like
Yeah.
he played the game the right way for not only him being a champion, but for the guys below him. If you fight and you earn the right to be in the ring fighting for a title, you would get that shot with Marab as champion. He's not gonna go to the guy beneath you because he thinks it's a better opportunity for him to win. He
Yeah.
tries to play it as honorably as possible, and for that, I give him the fighter of the year.
All right. I'm not mad at that. Um, Marab did not have to take that last fight. 3 title defenses in the year, and Pantoja did not have to take that last fight either. Uh,
He didn't, but I do. I think he knew what he was doing.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think he
yeah,
saw an opportunity to strike while the iron is hot. And not saying that he should be punished for that, but I do think there is a little bit of almost like, irony in the fact that he lost his belt to the person that nobody expected him to lose his belt to.
right. Yeah, he was big underdog, or Van was a big underdog in that fight. Um, so yeah, but Marab, he's going to take on anybody. He's going to get back up, and he's going to be fighting very soon. I have a feeling. I mean, he might take some time off, much deserved. But he did have a really awesome year. That last fight didn't go his way, but he had a great year, and he was in good spirits afterwards as well.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah,
Second category, moment of the year. Now we were a little bit loose with this one. It could be moment/moments of the year. Uh, with that being said, what was your moment/moments of the year for the UFC?
all right. So we had a lot of big ones. Um, the back-to-back spinning elbows was a huge one for Protez and Lerone Murphy. That was just a huge moment. Nobody expected back-to-back elbows there. Um, really great moment. However, my moment of the year was Van and Jan winning titles in the last pay-per-view that they were going to have. 2 upsets in the title spots. So Jan and Van with the double upsets there. That was my moment of the year.
Massive underdogs. Completely
Massive
written off.
underdogs.
Seeing Jan as that big of an underdog should have
Yeah.
been. It should have triggered something in my degeneracy to at least throw $1 onto him because I see what he is as a fighter and how well rounded he is. Um, I don't think at any point in time he should have been that level of an underdog to, again, a very skilled fighter in Marab, but it's not like there was an overwhelming benefit on any of the game, like ground or hands that he had over Jan that was just like overwhelmingly better. You know what I mean? I get the
Yeah.
odds makers.
I
I
will
think
say this
Gas Tank
though.
was a little bit better, and the fact that Jan does start slow and
Mhm.
Marab could bank rounds. Maybe that's what's going into it, right? But
Yeah.
um, skill for skill, I think Jan has a lot of neutralizers that work well against Marab. So the odds were a little bit crazy. But again, we're talking about a guy who was going for his fourth title defense against somebody he beat
Yeah.
already too. So, revisionist history, but still, yeah.
And he did beat him in that first one. And the wrestling, when you look at the Aljamain fight that Jan had and the Marab fight the first time, it didn't really, you would think when it got to the grappling, it would have went Marab's way very easily.
Yes.
Until you look at the statistics and say, well, yeah, but he stopped like 37 takedowns in that first fight, you know? And the difference in that fight was probably the amount of takedown shot. I think Jan kept him on the feet, and that did it for him. So those were my moments. That was my moment slash moments of the year. What were yours?
I like that. Um, there was a fighter who went through and kind of stopped momentum for a few guys in the year 2024. I think some of it in 2025. And all three of these guys kind of had bounce backs. So I'm doing kind of a trinity of the KO victims of Tapiria as my moment of the year. Uh, Oliveira bouncing back after fighting a very,
Hmm.
I want to call it sloppy, undisciplined first round against Tapiria, getting caught with what everybody said he would get caught with. You know, making dreams come true and tickets go green essentially. Um, and then Volk being in a kind of a dark space and taking on a challenge that he probably thought was a little bit overrated, and then the term is F around and find out, and I think he did. And then ending up climbing back to a position of being one of the older champs to regain a belt, right? I think he has the record now for oldest person to win a title, not really defend, right? Um, and then the third guy, Max Holloway, who was known for being Iron Chin, never being put down,
Hmm.
getting put down, and then bouncing back, ruining Dustin Poirier's retirement fight. Uh, Looking on another level speed wise, striking wise than he has in a couple years. He looks sharp again. And being able to kind of leverage that to potentially fighting for a belt early this year. Not just BMF, but maybe he could get back in the talks since, lightweight's kind of open after Patty and Gaethje do their thing for the interim, right? So seeing all three of those guys face adversity and then kind of bounce back in the year 2025, I think was cool because I was writing them off. I had them buried after being KO'd the way they did. Um,
Yeah, all three of them.
you, for the most part, yeah, I didn't think Volk would bounce back from because he had the Islam then the Superior knockouts on him, right? I thought that was very to go back to back like that. It'd be hard to kind of fight his way back to the top. Charles has always been known to be chinny. I didn't know how he was going to kind of build himself back up. I figured that would be kind of like, you know, his unfortunate fall into fighting lower level fighters. And then Max, he was hovering in this space where like it was mainly what he's brought to the game, not necessarily what he could bring to the game that was giving him these fights.
Hmm.
And when you kind of take that away,
Yeah,
when you see somebody invincible not really be that anymore, where do you go with that afterwards? What do you offer him? Um, you kind of try to build other people up off the name. That's what I've seen usually, right? Uh, Granted, I had them as legends, and I thought they were still great. But
mm,
even you, at some points on the podcast, said you weren't sold on top. You felt like it was just right place, right time, right situation, right year. So I don't think you were even
yeah,
completely sold on them bouncing back from those fights. Um, so to see them face that adversity and come back, it was amazing as a fan of the sport to root for those guys,
yeah,
and see what they could do in the year 2026 in that Paramount
yeah.
era.
And I think they've got bright futures. Two of them are fighting each other coming up. Max Holloway and Oliveira will be fighting each other, and Volkanovski's about to put the title on the line again against Diego Lopez. So um, all three of them, even with that setback, is going to have it really those moments set them up for big fights at the beginning of this year. and I think
Great
that's a
bounce back. Great bounce back.
great bounce back for them.
Third topic of award night. Even though we're recording this in the morning. Newcomer of the year.
Oh
Which
man.
fighter um really set the tone as coming into the promotion the year 2025?
Okay. So few of the people out there that I looked at, um, Bisanger, Suzakayev, very hyped, uh, Chimaev teammate, uh, Josh Hockett, heavyweight. Don't give him a microphone. He's kind of cringy, uh, but the man can fight.
He reminds me
Uh,
of Chandler when he first came over. Chandler does a little bit better job of being original,
y-
but yeah.
yeah. Well, you could tell everything was pre-written. He had memorized it all, and it was a bit, you know. Um, Steven Asplin, his last fight was so good. Um,
He's
Tiba
a natural
Gutierrez.
on the mic.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah, give him the mic every time. Atiba, um, great fighter. Ethan Ewing, Malcolm Wellmaker were both good fighters, but Ethan Ewing won that fight. I ultimately gave it to Kevin Vallejos. I think he's got a really bright future. Uh, a little more that I saw proven for him. I don't think they've really challenged Gutierrez much. He would have had it had I seen him fight somebody that I thought they were really trying to challenge him with. Um, and most of the other ones, I've only seen one fight or Bisanger two, and I wasn't very impressed in his last one, though, even though he did get the knockout. So Kevin Vallejos out of Argentina is my newcomer of the year. I think he'll be vying for contention for a title very soon.
I like that your selection was kind of based on where he could take it, right? Because a lot of the guys that you mentioned, and there's a lot of raw talent. Atiba
Yeah.
is phenomenal just based on the power he brings at the weight class he's in.
Hmm.
Um, Shades of Ngannou, shades of uh Usman on his run in terms of knockout power. Again, seeming to be bigger than the division. That's where I'm going. I don't think
Yeah.
skill for skill at all for the Usman Atiba comparison. Just putting people on their backs. Uh, I can't get the picture of Ethan Ewing on 48 hours notice coming in and kind of, you know, fighting heads up on the front foot against Wellmaker, who was new in his own right, but
Hmm.
was setting the world on fire with knockouts to play into that danger game, to stand in the pocket, to get hit with some of that power, um,
Yeah.
to fight a cleaner fight, to fight a more technical fight, to outpoint him in Madison Square Garden, in front of a sold out crowd for your first fight ever.
Yeah.
I gotta give him newcomer of the year. I want to see him in more fights. I want to see him in a camp where somebody could prepare for him a little bit more. I want
Hmm.
somebody who isn't overlooking him to get in there with him. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
no disrespect to Wellmaker, but we talked about this um, once before, uh, even on the time we recorded before this,
Yeah.
that he didn't seem engaged in what was about to happen. That he
Yeah.
thought, okay, they gave me somebody that I'm probably going to knock out. And this isn't technically a challenge on, UFC fans' radars. I'm
Hmm.
disappointed. I wish I had my quote unquote challenge. Um, and he overlooked the guy. And the guy came in there as a champion of a if we're ranking it based on like divisions, he's like a Division 3 champion going against somebody who's in Division 1.
Yeah.
And he showed that, you know, he's got the skills to kind of,
Hmm.
if you overlook him, he could come in there and he could strike and he could counter and he could take a punch and he could keep coming and pressing forward. And too many times, more often than not, I see somebody on that short notice either play a dangerous game and get knocked out because it's kind of like, okay, I'm here for the check, or they run around the ring and not play an entertaining technical fight and get a check that way. This guy came in there. asserted his dominance, got a
Yeah.
win, and I'm excited for what 2026 could hold for Ethan Ewing.
Yeah. Ethan Ewing is so good. If I'd have seen him more, maybe he would have been my fighter of the year. I was so impressed with him. He seemed to have a really high fight IQ. He had fought the week before that he fought Wellmaker. Uh, he was a champion in the last division, and he went up a weight class to do that. So very impressive.
He did go up a year, a weight class. Yeah,
I, yeah, I'm curious to see though. Sometimes when they go up in the weight class, they end up doing better because they're not draining themselves. So I'm curious to
Max
see
Holloway.
him. Yeah, I'm curious to see what he does at the weight class he's supposed to be at, um, or that he cuts down to see if that translates well against the smaller guys, or if he loses something on it because he might be better off at that higher weight. You know, but two weight classes, two cuts in a week, and believe me, he had to cut that second time.
Yeah.
So two weight cuts, fighting a bigger guy against better competition, and he still came out on top was highly impressive. So I've got high hopes for him.
Super, super impressive. I'm excited for him as well. Moving on to fight of the year. What fight had you glued to the screen? Free
Okay,
or not so free?
might be a little controversial
Live.
because there were a lot of people who kind of thought that Marab ran away with this one, but I was not one of them. Um, Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab Dvalishvili was my fight of the year. I actually think that Khabib was not out of line when he thought that Umar won that fight and he was looking to grab that belt from Dana to
Yes,
put it on Umar. I think that he could make a case. Of course, he's on the biased side because he's, Umar's coach and
for sure.
yeah, so he would have seen what his fighter did well and maybe overlooked some other things. I think that's perfectly normal to think your guy might have won in that situation. I don't think Umar was as gassed as people said he was. He was gassed, but I don't think he was ever really out of the fight. Uh, and there's a case that the I think the rounds he won were definitive wins for Umar. Um, and the ones for Marab could have gone either way, but they all went for Marab. And so such a close fight, two really high level guys going at it. Marab and Umar was my fight of the year. Who was your fight of the year?
Balance is good in a podcast. Balance is good. You will never pick. You will never. We will do this pod for years, and you'll never hear me take a wrestling exhibition as my fight of the year. And that's the I think Roger's the wrestler. Kudos to Roger. Right, he brings a lot of that side of the sport that I'm trying to be a little bit more partial to if I'm gonna cover this sport because it is a skill, and a lot of the top fighters have it as a very important weapon in their arsenal. And when
Yes,
done
you
well
have
and
to.
effectively, I like what I see. Right, I won't be
Yeah.
completely, you know, out of the game if you're in there wrestling. I just, we'll get into my feelings about certain wrestlers maybe later on another pod. But for me, I want you punching. I
The whole
want you in
time.
there just punching. Keep punching. So Joshua Van Brandon Royval was my fight of the year
And
because
that
they
makes
did
total
nothing
sense.
but punch. Punch, punch,
The
punch, punch, punch for three
whole
straight
time.
rounds. So many punches. A lot of damage on Royval, some damage on Van. Um, a toss up till pretty much like the back end of the third, where Van kind of took control. Um, and what that kind of springboarded Van into, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because if say Van goes in there and it's not this level of fight, we don't get Pantoja being like, "Yeah, I'll take that guy,"
Yeah.
right? If he wins the fight but gets taken down even once and looks really shoddy on the ground, I don't even think Pantoja could sell it as being
Yeah.
a fight he takes off of that, right? And for Royval, this was his chance to kind of get back in that mix. So Royval was fighting with everything he had. He knew this was his opportunity to potentially fight for a belt again. And Van was like, if I shock the world and I look good doing it, I could propel myself a little bit further than I technically should be based on
Mhm.
rankings and skill set and whatever. And those boys got in there and punched, man.
Yeah, they did.
And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute of the fight. Again, not always the most skillful, not always the most technical, but in terms of like ferocity and some of the things that I kind of enjoy seeing as a UFC fan, I got my money's worth on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Um,
everybody got their money's worth on that one.
they did, and Van again, for whatever circumstances you call it, is a champion now,
Yeah.
and he needed that fight to get in the ring with Pantoja. So, um, I got to give it to the punch exhibition. But there's a lot of good candidates out there. You know, we could have gone down the Roundtree, Yuri one. We could have gone down
Mhm.
the Pereira, telling everybody that Ankalaev had nothing for him, and then proving it. Right, like
Yeah.
there's so many fights from last year. Those are just two, you know, from different
Yeah,
viewing perspectives that we loved the most on the year.
definitely.
Um, so yeah, great fights. Uh, Speaking of Ankalaev and Pereira, finish of the year. What fight ended before the fifth or third round bell that was your favorite fight, your favorite finish of the
My
year?
favorite finish of the year. Are we gonna split this into subs, or we're just gonna go straight favorite finish?
Favorite finish, because we have sub as a separate one.
Okay. Alright. I had 2 candidates for this.
Yes.
Mauricio Ruffy,
Okay.
Bobby Green. That spin kick was so beautiful.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Um, I put it at second. Uh,
Hmm.
Kian Soul killed over, Hot Press. I'm sure I'm saying that name wrong, because I just have a poor time pronouncing some things, but, Soul Kid, oh, kicked him into oblivion. It was a thing of beauty. That was my favorite one. There were a lot of really good finishes. Malcolm Wellmaker had a few. Um, Waldo Cortez Acosta had a few.
Yeah,
Uh,
he has his moments.
Beautiful ones. But Kian Soul Killed gets my award for knockout of the year, finish of the year.
Love it. Love it.
If you
Um,
haven't seen it, go see it.
that's one I need to run back. I won't even, pretend as if I did see it. That's one I definitely need to run back. Um, but I'm gonna give you one that I know you don't have to run back.
Give it.
There's a certain, you mentioned Ruffy.
Hmm.
There's a certain fighting collaborative that he used to be connected to, the Fighting Nerds.
Yeah.
And there's a certain fighting nerd who you know, what's the Harry Potter spell called? Wingardium Leviosa, where you let
I,
somebody float? Is that what it's called? I'm not really a Harry
I,
Potter guy.
I'm not either.
Tune in to scene at all, where Amal will watch movies and cover them. But um, he made a Jamaican float.
Yes, he did.
He made a Jamaican float. Uh, Pretty late in the year. You know, no substances needed, and I have to give him that because everything in that fight he fought for what everybody's going back and doing. Again, I'm really big on people not being, prisoners of the moment and not going back and being like, okay, because this happened, this also must be true, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And the way Leon Edwards' name kind of got tarnished out after that fight, I feel like it's a little bit unfair because going into that fight, it was seen as a big risk for Prates. And going into that fight, there was an argument about who was the better striker. And going
Hmm.
into that fight, people thought Prates could go down a very similar pathway that Ian Gary fight went because he's coming against somebody who's very skilled, who's definitely
Yeah.
a better wrestler, and has the striking ability to give him problems.
Yeah.
Now, we over here at Art of MMA did not think Leon Edwards had the striking ability to necessarily give him too many problems. I know Roger said it would be a little bit
I,
closer.
I
Um,
thought he had the skills to give him those problems.
I thought he had to lean on the wrestling.
You were absolutely correct in that. I was
I
totally
thought he
off.
needed to do that.
When
Um,
we presented that, I said I would be disappointed if he took his shot, but it ended up being the right call. and you were 100% on
That's
that
what he
because
should have stuck with.
he won the first round like that.
He did. Again, not in an exciting fashion, and I don't want to go through the history of Leon Edwards, right? But it starts to play in your head.
Mhm.
He fought for 12 fights before he got to Usman, right? Am I
Yeah,
wrong in that? I might be close.
a
Um,
lot of fight. He had a long win
a
streak.
lot of fights, a lot of wins. Leon Murphy's in the same boat right now.
Mhm.
Um, he had to do a lot of winning to get there. And you could even argue if it wasn't for the little backstage spat with Jorge Masvidal, do we even remember Edwards enough in his next win to get him to Usman, right?
Yeah.
It took almost like, again, bad situation, bad press, but somebody to make his name relevant to get him that opportunity. And he gets in there against Prates, who, if he goes in there and wrestles, and doesn't have an exciting finish, because that's kind of what the UFC is about, unfortunately, where does he go from that Prates fight? It's not as simple to get back to the top, right?
Yeah.
Prates played on that mental. Prates called him out for not striking. Prates did the little
Mhm.
yawn face when he was being back
Yeah.
controlled at the end of the first round. And I think played to that mental aspect against Leon.
Mhm.
And I'm speaking for somebody that I don't know. So maybe it didn't play that much. But to me, I think he called him out and it worked and made him a little bit, okay, the bravado came out. I'm going to show you I'm
Yeah.
a striker. I outstruck Kamaru Usman and won a belt
Mhm.
and retained a belt. Of course I could outstrike you. And within 15 seconds of making that decision, his feet weren't on the ground anymore.
Mm-mm.
And I think I gotta give it to him. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of knockouts. I've seen a lot of guys get put out cold. I've never seen somebody get completely taken off their feet by a straight punch. No
Mhm.
trip, none of that. Just a straight punch down the pipe
Mhm.
and didn't even wake up off the landing. Body went completely limp. Like, I don't know when we'll see Leon again, but he's kind of in that realm for me as a degenerate,
Yeah.
where if he goes into a striking match against somebody with any level of power, I'm looking at the odds for him to get finished again, because I think it's a hard thing to recover
It
getting put
is.
out that maliciously by
Yeah.
Prates. Um, it was a beautiful strike, beautiful end. Um, I see it replaying in my head.
Yeah.
Like, and this is coming off the back of the spinning elbows,
Mhm.
the which I was very close to giving it to Gregory Rodriguez for the uh career ending essentially knockout of Jack Hermanson. I don't think he'll ever be the same. He got
Yeah.
finished in his next fight. Um but I had to stick with this guy because I had a lot of respect for Leon Edwards, and I still think
Yeah.
he has a very good skill set. And to have that done to him
Mhm.
in that moment, I think also plays into why I had to give it the finish of the year.
And if I can say this about Prates, it piqued my interest to see some of his go back and watch some of his other finishes, and when I did, what I saw him do against Leon Edwards, I saw him do to it I think it was at least 2 other people, if not 3, where he hit them with the same punch and their feet came off the ground. This was not a one-off. This was a skill that he seems to have to hit them with that shot, and both their feet come off the ground, and you see them if you pause it, their feet off the ground, butt's about to hit the canvas. I don't know how he does it. I haven't looked into his mechanics at all or anything, but a great shot to have in your arsenal, and it is not a fluke.
Phenomenal,
So,
phenomenal shot to have in your arsenal.
yeah, I love that pick.
I agree. Not a fluke either. Um, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. But you mentioned, are we sticking with just the punches or are we going to go with the subs? We decided to split them up because, again, you're a guy who likes submissions in wrestling. So I
Yeah, I
want
do.
you to be able to highlight not only, you know, that aspect, but get an opportunity to pick your favorite punch. So go ahead, pick your favorite wrestling one, and I'll give you mine.
All
Start
right,
with
so mine's gonna be a little bit more um under the radar here. It was on one of the latter I don't even know if they fought on the pay-per-view or was it a prelim. Aaron Blanchfield and Tracy Cortez fought, and they had a really good first round. And in the second round, Blanchfield pushes her against the cage, gets a takedown, and kind of on her way down, gets a a rear naked choke that was just at such a weird angle that I had to watch it 3 or 4 times to see that she even tapped. The camera angles, I mean, you can see it when you look at enough of the camera angles, but at first, she's just going down to the ground, and they kinda roll to the side, and next thing you know, the fight's over, and you're like, "What
What
happened?"
happened?
It was so fast, it was so slick. Aaron Blanchfield, sub of the year for me.
I think it was a good one because we did, in the I don't want to say aftermath, but everything kind of changed after the potential fixed fight. I think almost confirmed fixed fight took
Mhm.
place. Where we're like, what happened there? Was it a
Yeah.
fight? As you know, what I mean, like not calling Tracy Cortez somebody who'd fix a fight, but
Oh, I
when
definitely had to look at it.
yeah, you had to give it you had to give a second glance, which sucks for the sport that we're in this realm now where everything has to be questioned, but we questioned it. And
Yeah.
then you go back and watch and you're like, no, that was
Yeah.
dangerous. Like it was a strong grip and she kind of, was able to sink it in a little bit tighter. Definitely a great finish. Great for her coming off of that long layoff. Um should propel her kind of in the upper realm of that division. But for me,
Yeah.
it's one guy that not did it once, not did it twice, did it at least three, potentially four. I'd have to go back and check the fight log.
Pretty
Times
sure
in a
it's
row
4.
in the year of 2025. Um, at least three times in the year 2025. Walter Walker, the heel hook assassin,
The heel hook king.
the heel hook king. Um, it became almost, you know, I almost felt like I was watching the WWE because it's like the storyline would be set. He'd come out there in this crazy heel on a necklace chain, and you know that that's probably what he's going in there to potentially do, and he did it from different angles, from different
Different
tactics.
angles. Yep, different
Have you against the
setups.
fence, throw an elbow, slide down your back, get on your heel. Have you in the middle of the cage, get on your heel. Um, he just found the heel every time, and he utilized that to propel himself in the upper realm of the UFC heavyweight fighting situation. Um, I don't remember who his next opponent or who he was calling out for his next opponent. I think uh, a couple heavyweights on the way up. I think Josh Hockett might have called him out too.
I think Hockett did call him out.
Yeah, I think Hockett called him out.
I don't know that that fight got made, but I know that he called him out. It was 3
But
heel
he's a
hooks
name
last
now.
year,
Yeah,
and it was his 4th one in a row, but 3 of them happened in 2025.
yeah.
The 4th one was in August of '24. So 3
Three
fights in a
subs
row,
in itself in a year for
all
him to
heel
fight
hook.
is impressive, right? You could go down a lot of guys' charts, um, especially in the heavyweight division. Three
Yeah,
submissions in a year to end fights is a big deal. Three submissions of the exact same practice is a big deal. Three of that nuanced one, three heel hooks when you probably haven't seen two heel hook finishes in an entire calendar year from the entire roster leading up to that year for a few years. It's impressive, man. And he didn't hit it with the Gracie style, not trying to make fun of Gracie, or I don't know if it was Gracie. It's another guy who slides on the ground. Who Superior battered for attempting to do that. Um, he's getting it from standing position a lot of times. So
yeah, yeah.
I was impressed. Um, Interesting fights ending in an interesting way. I had to give it to Walter Walker, and he propelled that into a very funny grappling match against a guy who he can't heel hook.
That's right.
He did.
Gotta see what else he has.
Got to see what else he has, and again, that's another opportunity that opens up because of the heel hooks, right? So he's making good living for himself
Yes,
off
he
of
is.
it. Three of them in a year. Got to give it to Walter Walker.
Right. I think that's great. When I saw him, he had 2 heel hooks in a row when I first saw him come on the scene, and then, I saw him grab the 3rd one, and then I saw him grab the 4th one, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, you gotta learn to keep your heels away from this guy.
Got
Like,
to.
you gotta keep him at bay somehow. Maybe he's gotta fight Morales and have those hips way back, and you gotta be mobile, but you have to stay away from him because he's gonna drop to that heel, and he's super good at getting it. Um,
He's a professional at it.
Absolutely.
And what this leads into as well is kind of like, I don't want to say Derek Lewis, right? Where like guys go into a Derek Lewis fight with intentions of not allowing him to do certain things.
Mhm.
And sometimes being in your own head and changing your fight style could actually play into Derek Lewis's hands. If you go into a fight with Walter Walker, you're going to be worried about your heels.
Yeah.
And that's going to leave other things susceptible to, he's not a terrible striker. So if you get a little bit
Yeah.
comfortable allowing yourself to be open to that area of his game, that could be a problem. You know what I mean? So just by kind of creating that aura, I don't want to say neutralizing, but he's changing the way certain people are going to fight him, which can
Yeah.
end up being his benefit as well. Guys are going to come in there with a different game plan and go away from probably some of the things they do very well in hopes that he won't hook their heel. So,
Yeah. And I think that's all part of the mental warfare that
mhm,
kinda gets left out of a lot of the talk. Um, Once you can establish yourself as having the, um, prowess to pull off a specific thing,
mhm,
um, it leads the other person to have to pay attention to it, even
it
if they
does.
don't want to. You'll have very few guys who don't watch tape because they don't want it to interfere with what they're gonna do.
Mhm,
Usually that ends up to their detriment. Not always. Some guys are just good, they're just good enough athletes to do that. Um, but that mental warfare with that uh, is like you're going to do this, and I'm going to make you do this because if you don't, it's kind of like you're blackmailing them. I'm going to
for
hook your
sure.
heel. I'm going to hook your
Facts.
heel. So
I'm
do
gonna hook
something
your heel.
else.
No, for
And
sure.
so it kind of you know if you could tell where their feet are going to be, because if they put it in the wrong spot, you're going to heel hook them. Like you kind of know what fight they're going to fight to a certain degree. Um,
Hmm.
and so submission of the year, submissions of the year. I think that's a great pick.
I appreciate it, man. Um, Based on the list we are going off of, I feel that was our last category. Unless you had one that we didn't mention. Um,
I had one for
Specific fight.
comeback of the year.
Okay, let's do it.
Um,
Who was your comeback fighter of the year or
so I had
comeback of
two.
the year? If it was like comeback in a fight.
It was comeback in a fight.
Okay,
This is what I meant by, but we could go either way with that. But
let's do comeback in
the
a fight.
the Antidelige Waldo Costa Cortez Acosta fight was
Hmm.
great. It
Hmm.
looked like Delige had won that fight, and I think the ref actually was stopping the fight.
Yeah,
And then
he
he
did.
saw a moment where something illegal happened, and he could somehow wiggle into the fight still on. But I think that he meant to stop that fight when he did. My personal opinion. They can say whatever they want to. I was watching it live. I thought the fight was over. I thought he called the fight until I think it was Herb Dean kind of stepped in and said something. But before that, I think that fight was over. I think Delige had won that, but kudos to Acosta for coming back on that. However, my winner is Mason Jones. If you haven't seen this fight, go back and watch Bellagioki versus Mason Jones. Mason Jones could have been put out in that first round.
Hmm.
I mean, there's referees that would have stopped that
That
fight,
would have 1,000% ended it. Yeah.
and he gutted through that and slam wore out Oki over the next, and he I think he ended up stopping the fight early on that because he just tired out Oki and he just kept going, and Oki could not put him down. But there are a lot of fights over the years where you think about like what would the outcome have been if the ref had stepped in on this one like they do in the other fights, but they let it keep going. Frankie Edgar comes to mind.
Yeah.
Gray Maynard probably should have been champ, uh, but the ref didn't step in.
Hmm.
You know, Frankie Edgar comes back and wins it, so you can't take anything away. You have to go till the ref is done, and Mason just came back. So if you get the chance to go back and watch that fight, go back and watch the fight. It's great. It's entertaining. It's full of the ups and downs that a lot of people like to watch in sports. Mason Jones gets my comeback of the year.
Yeah, I'll need to watch that one 1,000% because I'm not too familiar with that fight, but one that I don't have to go back and watch. Uh, to put in terms of where we are right now, it's like
Mhm.
if tonight, which to date the podcast, but if tonight Miami goes down 28-3 going into the fourth quarter and they come back and win 35-28
Mhm.
against Ole Miss. Not saying this is what's going to happen. If you're a degenerate, you could put those in as exact scores. But it's like if this happens today, right? There was a fighter who was down 2-0 on the cards, very comfortably down 2-0 on the cards in a very important light
Mhm.
heavyweight fight. With, to me, as a viewer, no direct path to victory unless it's a finish. There will be no outpointing your opponent. You are down too substantially in a 3-round fight. You need to put out your opponent. The only issue is your opponent's a heavy hitter. Your opponent is very durable. Your opponent has great stamina. You're not necessarily a submission specialist, right? So the only way this is probably going to play out is by you walking into danger and putting punches on him until he falls down. This fighter did that. He signed his essential death certificate going into the third round and said, I'm either going to be flat on my back out cold or he is. That's how this third round is going to end. And he acted on that promise. And I'm giving it to Yuri Prohashka against Khalil Roundtree
Yuri
because,
Prohaska.
because I had Khalil Roundtree winning that fight before the fight. Just based on technicality and some of the things
Mhm.
to be able to present as a guy who's not only a strong striker, but a technical one. He's gonna be in
Mhm.
there providing issues for Yuri, who's a lot more untraditional and unconventional in his striking angles and attempts, right? So I thought he was gonna get in there and make it difficult for Yuri, which he did for 2.5 rounds. I'd
Mhm.
say 2 rounds in a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree with that.
And then Yuri was like, okay, well, I guess this is it. Like if I don't act now, this is how the rest of the fight's gonna go. He just walked into danger, and he ate punches and he was in the pocket with Khalil, and every time Khalil hit him he would get hit with an elbow or a forearm or a straight punch or a hook or an uppercut from Yuri at close range with reckless abandon. Again,
I have
you can't, it's rare to see somebody go in with no defensive plan. I'm not going to say no defensive plan, but I am going to say no defensive plan.
I mean, no
There
defensive
is no
plan.
defense. He's walking into the punches and saying, "I'm just going to hit you with a harder one after you hit me."
I've
That
seen it happen twice,
yeah.
and once was very impressive because the guy was never down in the fight. Yuri was down in the fight. He was losing that fight.
So
Um, and Yuri Prohaska said, I know I'm going to get hit.
yeah,
I don't care that I'm going to get hit. Give
nope,
me your head,
yeah.
and I'm going to take this fight. And he just, that's what he did. He just said, I'm, I'm going down or I'm winning this fight. And
It's
that was
only
it.
two
Like
options.
Khalil had, you know, feel bad for Khalil
I do.
in a couple of his fights because he was beating Pereira, I thought, until
Yeah,
Pereira turned it up. He was beating Pereira. He was beating Yuri, and they just said, like, they wagged their finger at him and just said, "No, uh-uh, nope, I'm taking this fight. You're not gonna have this victory." And he just went in. He was getting hit. It's not like he wasn't getting hit. He was getting hit, and he
yeah,
just
he'll get
went
hit
in
a
and
couple
just
of
kept
times for
going.
sure.
And there was nothing Khalil could do about it. I mean, he didn't have anything else to stop him, and it was very impressive.
I mean, what do you do when you're hitting somebody with everything you got for two
And they just keep
rounds,
coming.
and then in the third round you're like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be putting him away. I'm up on the
Hmm.
cards, you know, and the guy's just like, forget self preservation.
Yeah,
I'm just here and I'm not, you're going to hit me as hard as you could hit me and I'm still going to be here. I'm not stepping back. I'm not fainting. I'm not trying to shoot. I'm not giving you an angle out to rest. I'm here in
yeah,
front of you, even when you punch me. And you punch me as hard as you could possibly punch me. And you know what you're getting? An uppercut. Like, it's
yeah.
demoralizing not only from a physical standpoint, but emotionally. You're like, what can I do here? You know?
It's I think it's one of those things, and you could say Leon Edwards in was it the year before or 2 years before when he got Kamara the first time,
Yeah,
down on the cards, all the cards, probably 4 rounds
yeah, for sure.
down, and he came back. But, like, when you see somebody that's down 2 rounds and the commentators and everybody saying they have to finish to win this fight, you want them to fight like Yuri,
Yeah,
and most people do not, but Yuri fights like Yuri,
that's what I'm saying.
and
I give credit to the Leon win, but I can't compare the two. I'm not saying you were
yeah.
comparing the two, but I'm just saying I can't compare the
Mhm.
two because like Leon, magical shot, beautiful shot,
Yeah.
practiced it,
Using
but
it kinda an example of, he's down 4 rounds, he
yeah,
comes back, he knockout. That's you want people to do that, but you want your fighter to be Yuri Prochazka.
yeah, you
And
walked him
that's
down for
and
minutes.
most people are not. They continue with what they've been doing. They accept that they've lost, and Yuri is not gonna do that.
I mean, not to break down like human psychology or anything like that, but it takes a certain level of,
Mhm.
I don't know if you call it crazy or um determination or um willpower, whatever you call it, to I think a lot of people in the military that have been to battle have it. I think if you go back throughout history, some of those guys who, took a little took a sharpened piece of metal and charged
Mhm.
into other people uh
Yeah.
for hand-to-hand combat, right?
Mhm.
Some of those guys are built differently upstairs where it's like
Yeah.
you make that decision, and Yuri subscribes to the whole he's a samurai, and we
Mhm.
used to make fun. We I don't want to say we used to make fun, but I used to look at him and be like, it's kind of it seems real gimmicky.
It seems
I
very
don't
corny.
think it's gimmicky anymore. I think he's truly in his mentality like I'm going out on
Yeah.
my shield and sword,
Mhm.
especially after
Yeah.
the performance against Khalil. Because I mean, I can never say I saw Yuri quit. I've seen him get put out. I've seen him,
Mhm.
you know, attempt to do something like this with Pereira down in the first round, at the end of the first round, get dropped, come back in the second round, be like, let's go right at it again, and then get
Yeah.
finished. Um,
Mhm.
but I can never say I see him quit.
Yeah.
And this fight was just like the culmination of like maybe this is what he's been attempting to do his whole career. He succeeded. He
Yeah.
did it against Roundtree. So um, that was my favorite comeback of the year, even though it cost me a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I thought Roundtree was gonna win that fight too.
I did. Yeah, that was the Pereira Ankalaev card, and I had Roundtree and Pereira parlayed. Um, I had Roundtree by decision, I think, and Pereira by finish. And then I had one that was just Roundtree and Pereira to win.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I still had faith in Pereira to win by finish, so did that right after for a nice little penny. But I kept
Yeah.
looking at it and being like, what are the chances that this fight could have
Yeah.
technically been over if Roundtree hit him with something strong enough in the first 2 rounds? Like, it's not like
Yeah.
it was a question or like, oh, a variable, like, oh, maybe they could see it this way. It was complete domination from Roundtree on one side until, you know,
Mhm.
Yuri engaged and was like, this is it. Time for battle. One of us is
Yeah.
going out. And he executed. So it was one of the later fights in the year too, which was beautiful. I think the year of 2025 was a great year for fighting.
Oh,
Um,
it's fantastic.
not just from a fan perspective, but as people covering the sport in our small pocket. Getting this podcast going, getting it kind of off the ground, covering MMA again a little bit more consistently.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun for sure, and I'm excited for what 2026 holds. We have plans to record a podcast. I'm not going to say plans. We are going to record a podcast before the January 24th card
Mhm.
about what we see the year shaping up for each division, which guys are going to potentially be holding belts at the end of the year. What the landscape of the UFC is going to look like after this Paramount year. Uh, will we be better? Will the sport grow tremendously? Um, will it become a little bit more entertainment and less sport? There's so many things to kind of talk about just based on some of the stuff that's already come out about cards that have been decided. Um, Cards that are being put on, fights that are being put on, things that are being headliners, and guys that aren't really, I'm not really hearing their names yet as potential fighters on these upcoming Paramount cards that'll be intriguing to talk about. But just as like a year in review, it's been great kind of doing this podcast with Roger,
I've
and
loved it.
learning a lot more about the wrestling aspect and just some of the fights that sometimes I miss and I get to go back and watch and enjoy. So, um, and you guys seem to be enjoying it as well.
Yeah.
We appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And I'm excited for what the future holds. How about you, Roger? What says you as we close out?
I am definitely excited for what the year holds. I appreciate you bringing me on to do the podcast. I've had so much fun. It has been awesome. Hopefully we can continue to roll on with this, and get some of these cars so that like not just like when you have to, if you miss it, you got to go back and search it and find where the fight's at, or find a way to watch the fight in some way, shape, or form, or you know, look at different ways because maybe you can't afford to buy a pay per view every time. Paramount's gonna end a lot of that, uh, and so I'm excited for that. I think people, you know, you don't necessarily have a sports center top 10 like they used to have to promote this sport, but at least when something big happens, people will be able to go back and find it on Paramount and watch it,
Have you looked
you
at the
know?
interface yet? Not to cut you off.
No,
It looks very clean. They have it grouped by fighters. They have it grouped by years. They have it grouped by cards.
on
They have it
Paramount?
grouped by yeah. They have it grouped by upcoming cards. So if you have like, for example, Gaethje and Pimblett, right? You could go
Yeah,
in and watch a bunch of Pimblett's recent fights and Gaethje's previous fights just by kind of like going under a tab that's like UFC whatever upcoming, and then they'll
yeah,
break it down by the fighters on that card, headliners on that card, best of the 2000s,
that's
best of the
great.
2010s. Like it looks like there's a lot of effort put into the interface and how they want to present the content to you off the rip, not just the new content but the former content. And I'm all about
Yeah, and I was
that. So I'm excited.
I
I'm
was
excited for
wondering
it.
how that was gonna be, and I
I think it's
hadn't looked
cleaner
to
than how
see if it was
ESPN
up.
had it.
Do
Honestly,
what?
I said I think it's cleaner than how ESPN had it. I think there's been a lot of
Okay.
investment made. Obviously, financially, they paid a lot to have the sport be on Paramount. But I mean, just again, how it's presented to the consumer
Mhm.
is very easily consumable, which will, lead to a lot of people going back and watching fights that they probably didn't get to see
Yeah.
in the ESPN era. Because I'm not gonna lie, navigating ESPN Plus was not my favorite.
So, yeah, it wasn't mine either. Does it have, some of the fights that were on ESPN?
Oh yeah, it
Are
does.
they
Yeah, they
Oh, it
they, they
does.
got all that stuff now. I mean, they own the rights to all
Right.
of it now. They they
Alright.
paid billions with a B, so all of that stuff's
Well,
on Paramount.
y'all go look up Mason Jones and Bellagioki
And
on that,
check out some
and,
of the ones that
go check
Roger
out that
gave you.
fight.
Because I mean, the UFC did
Um,
their award show, but they gave you ones that you know are names they're trying to build off of. Rogers give you some of the stuff that you probably didn't see or didn't hear from Joe Rogan or some of the bigger talking heads at the end of the
or
year
maybe
putting fights up.
it was big for that one night,
Yeah,
and then nobody looked at it after that, so
yeah. These things deserve to be kind of, I don't want to say immortalized, but somewhat. If you have a performance
yeah,
that is that amazing, it shouldn't matter what name or where you are in the rankings. If you do something phenomenal, you should get credit for it. So yeah, go back, tune into
yeah,
those fights, see some of what Roger
I'm
saw.
excited. I think I figured out
Yeah,
the rest of my day.
there you go. I have a lot of research to do too, because I want to make sure what the 2026 year preview one that we do comes from a point of a little bit more research. I want to be a little bit sharper for that one. So I'm excited to go in and just watch, see what I see out of some of these fighters, see if any of these
Yeah,
newcomers that we love will be established names at the back end, right? So
mhm,
excited for what that pod could be, but excited to get this content out to you guys on a consistent basis, and take kind of Paramount as the jump off point and starting point for Art of MMA to really be consistent for you guys as well. So thank you again for the support. Thank you guys again for watching. Like, subscribe, share, leave comments about what you like. Leave comments about your favorite fighter of the year, submission of the year, any of the topics we covered. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.
excellent.